So they're 10 plays. So I call it a playbook, right? It's 10 plays. So play one is wealth is not something you do. It's something you become, right? So you have to become somebody different oftentimes. And sometimes it's hard for us to admit that we might not be the person we need to be wealthy. But the good thing is that we're born for evolution and we can change, right? And this kind of hit home to me when I was at a Tony Robbins event and the guy said, I'm not a big materialistic guy, but but I love watches, right? And, sometimes people are like, why do you need like a $30,000 watch, $50,000 watch or whatever? And he's like, well, I don't need it. But every time I look at this watch, I think to myself, who I had to become to afford this watch.
Mm-hmm.
And when he said that, I was like, man, you got to become somebody different, right? Like the things you have to do as an entrepreneur, the things you have to do as an investor, the kind of faith and discipline that you have to have is something that you have to become if you're not that person already, right? So, this kind of came in messed up because I sent it to you the PowerPoint. But one thing I believe is that wealth is an area of study. So everybody watching out there, guys, like, this is not something you should take lightly because this is your life. Like at the end of the day, you want to be financially free. That's what we preach, and so you got to be picking up those books. You love books just like I do, Coach. And I'm, I love Psychology of Money. I just reread twice. Like I'm
so
good. I'm just devouring this because I'm formulating a mindset and a strategy so I can see opportunities that I can say yes to the right things and say no to things I should say no to. Right. The other thing is money is simply a tool, right? We have these feelings and emotions about money. It's just a tool, right? You can do something great with it. You can do something terrible with it. It all depends on the person who has it. And money doesn't always equal wealth, right? So realize that there's many people that have a lot of money, but aren't actually spiritually happy. They're not happy in their lives. So you got to understand that there's value to other things. And one great example is this another movie. I don't know if you've ever seen Bronx.
Yeah, it's so good, dude. Leanne was telling me about this. I never watched it, and she's like, "Bro, you got to watch this movie."
Bro, and it's funny because people used to tell me I look like this guy. But basically, I show this because there was a scene in the movie, if you watched it recently, right, where he's standing with the mafia boss guy, and this guy walks across the street. He starts shouting to the guy across the street. He's like, "Yo, where are you going? Where's my money?" Blah blah blah. He's shouting, and then mafia boss is like, "Dude, relax." And he's like, "What do you mean relax?" He goes, "The guy owes me $20." He goes, "Bro," he goes, "You paid $20 to get rid of that guy." And so you have to understand that other things have value, right? Like I was literally with a client yesterday helping him, and she's going through a divorce, she's going through these things, and like you have to put value on things like peace, right? That has a value. I'll pay for peace, right? I'll pay to not chase a guy for $20. Like I'll chase to not have a guy who takes $20 from me and doesn't pay me back as a friend. I just paid some money to learn that lesson. I got something for my money that had an ROI for me, but you have to have a mindset to see that. So I'll leave it there in case you have some questions about that.
Yeah. So I just texted you. I don't know if you saw this. It was on Bet David. I shared it with you. Watch it later if you haven't seen it. I just texted it to you, Bobby. So Bet David kind of had a aha moment last weekend with his kids. And it was the very first thing that you said there of, what do you study, right? Like books, what are you going down? And he had an aha at his son's soccer match. And he said, as soon as the match started, he knew something was different. And he was like, something's different here. Something's different with this team. And he got over to one of the parents of the other team and is like, what's going on here? Like, y'all are different. Like, what do you do? Right. And he goes in, he's like, we don't practice, we train. Like, okay, who's your coach? Well, he looked him up. He's like top 10 scorer, in history. Then he goes, just every little thing. And he had that, Bet David goes, the realization. He goes, there's 3 types of people. There's the interested, there's the committed, and then there's the obsessed. And I think what we're seeing right now with a lot of real estate agents is we have a lot of interested real estate agents, but they're exiting the business because, you got to be committed, but to thrive, you got to be obsessed. And man, it was just like I watched that thing like 10 times. And I was like, my goodness, like you'll dig it as soon as you watch it.
I can't wait. And by the way, guys, this is what happens during investor season. So part of the reason I did this is because I was in the game when the market crashed last time. And so I saw both sides of the coin, right? I saw people win big, I saw people lose big. But one thing I understood is that these are only bad times for people who aren't prepared, right? There's a scared and there's a prepared. And so understand that, like, people falling out, like, you don't need to get scared about that. That's what happens during investor season. Like, when it gets tough, we figure out who the soldiers are. So that brings me to play two, which is be a long game player, right? Everybody knows the story about the tortoise and the hare. And when I was younger, I would hear the story and think, the moral was slow and steady wins the race. And, in my mind, I was like, who wants to be slow and steady? Like, when you're young, you're like, why don't we slow and steady, right?
I'm fast. I want to go faster.
I want to go fast, right? But when you read the story, what I realized over time was, no, it's not about speed. It was the fact that the turtle was a long game player.
Yeah.
The turtle understood that he had to take these small steps every day in order to get towards a goal. And he had to it didn't have to be anything spectacular, but he understood, this is where I'm going, and I have to have enough discipline and faith to follow this path. And that's what long game players do. So I put this up because, and this was, I think, in the Psychology of Money when we talked about this, is like, we talk a lot about things and stuff like that. And it's like, you see somebody with something expensive, like a car, and you think, oh, well, they must be wealthy, right? But like what he says in the book is like, the only thing like this is like $400,000 car, right? And the only thing when you see somebody in this car is that they're $400,000 less wealthy. That's all you know, right? Because anybody can make a payment. But the point being is that a long game player employs things like delayed gratification, like literally had an agent walk in with this purse, and she's so happy about this purse, and it's like, and I know her, so I love her to death, and she's producing, but like I was scared to ask her how much she paid for the purse,
right.
and I was hoping she meant $1,750, which I still wouldn't pay for a purse, but it was like $17,500 for the purse, and I'm like, what could we do? Like, my thing is that I want you to have the purse, but I want you to have as many as you want.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you have to have delayed gratification, and you have to understand what exponential curves look like. Because if you don't, what happens is you'll quit during what I call the shitty part of the curve, right? When the growth is slower, when there's setbacks and things like that. So a long game player understands that, like, at the beginning, it's going to look like this. But eventually you hit the exponential growth, right? That's when compounding kicks in, and compounding could be something with stocks or just compounding in life, right? Right now, we're all compounding our experience, our education level. We're compounding relationships. We're compounding all these things. And like, just because it's not moving as fast as you like, you have to understand what the curve looks like. And, I told this story, not in the book, but this is one that I pulled off. I think it was Psychology of Money, or one of his books, where he talked about this prisoner of war. Like, there was another, besides John McCain, this guy was one of the highest ranking prisoners of war. And the guy was interviewing him, and he was like, hey man, he's like, I'm sure it was really depressing in there, and blah, blah, blah. He's like, did you think you were actually coming home? He's like, oh yeah, man. He's like, I wasn't depressed. I always knew I was going to go home. He's like, and this guy was being tortured every day. He thought about committing suicide, so he wouldn't tell secrets. But he was like, I always knew I was going home. And he's like, man, that sounds like really kind of super positive, And he's like, well, what were the guys thinking that didn't make it home? He goes, oh, I could tell you that. He goes, those are the guys that thought they were going home by Christmas.
Yeah.
And so this idea that, hey, we're going home, but it might not be my Christmas. So you got to be a long game player, right? And so that brings me to play 3. I don't know if you have anything, on that particular.
No, I mean, you're so spot on, right? Like, even on the endurance side of things with me, it's like you can't be thinking about, man, as soon as I get up here, I'm going to stop. As soon as I get up here, I'm going to stop. You just, because if you put that false finish line in your head, man, and that finish line is like, just the goalpost just moved, the finish line just moved, 4 miles down the road, you want to quit.
Right.
But if you just keep going, then and just keep moving, the finish line will eventually come, but you don't even think about it. You just keep moving.